The feds just revealed new evidence on Pooh Shiesty's murders. Not the Gucci Mane situation, not the Dallas kidnapping. Murders, real ones. The kind that don't have statute of limitations. The kind that homicide detectives in Memphis have been sitting on for years waiting for the right moment to connect to a federal case, and that moment is right now. Pooh Shiesty went on Instagram publicly, no filter, and told the whole world that Boozy Badazz might be the only rapper alive who possibly has more bodies than him. Not Lil Durk, not NBA Youngboy, not 21 Savage, Boozy. The man the state of Louisiana literally tried to put on death row for ordering murders. That's the name Pooh Shiesty threw out as his only competition when it came to confirmed kills. And he said it like it was a flex, like it was a credential, like it was something he was proud of. The feds heard it, the investigators heard it, and now they are actively pulling thread on every unsolved shooting, every open homicide, every cold case in Memphis that has Pooh Shiesty's name floating anywhere near it in the streets. Because when you voluntarily tell the internet that your body count rivals a man who beat a death penalty murder case, you just handed federal prosecutors a roadmap and dared them to follow it. And then 6 weeks later, this man was allegedly in a Dallas recording studio with an AK-style pistol pointed at Gucci Mane's face on a federal ankle monitor, while supposedly on home confinement. The same man who rapped his entire career about catching bodies, about sliding on ops, about .762 flames and popping out on everybody, was allegedly living every single bar he ever wrote, in real time, with the government's own tracking device strapped to his ankle providing GPS coordinates of every move he made. Y'all need to hear this, all of it, because what the feds are building in that Dallas courthouse right now ain't just a kidnapping case. They are constructing the complete picture of who Lontrell Williams Jr. really is. And they're using his own music, his own Instagram, and his own ankle monitor to do it. This is the story of a man who told the truth his entire career and is now watching that truth become the evidence that buries him. To understand how we got here, fam, we need to go all the way back, not to the Gucci situation, not to Florida. We need to go back to Memphis, Tennessee, specifically the side of Memphis that doesn't show up in tourism brochures. Lontrell Donnell Williams Jr. was born November 8, 1999. He came up in a city where the violence isn't background noise, it is the environment. Memphis consistently ranks among the most violent cities in America per capita. Orange Mound, Binghamton, South Memphis. These aren't just neighborhoods, they're ecosystems where the rules of survival are completely different from anything the mainstream world understands. And Pooh Shiesty didn't just grow up adjacent to that world, he grew up inside it. His stage name wasn't invented by a marketing team. His late brother gave it to him. He took Lontrell's childhood nickname, Mr. Pooh, and added Shiesty to it. Shiesty, as in treacherous, untrustworthy to your enemies, the kind of person who moves in the dark and strikes when you least expect it. His own brother looked at who this kid was becoming and named him accordingly. That tells you everything about the environment this man was shaped by. By the time Pooh was 18, he started channeling that environment into music. His debut single, Hell Night with Big 30, dropped in March 2019, and it didn't sound like a kid trying to make it in rap. It sounded like a field recording from a war. Then came Choppa Talk, Shiesty Summer, record after record that painted specific, detailed pictures of what life in those Memphis trenches actually looked like. Not glamorized, not exaggerated for entertainment, reported, like journalism with an 808 beat behind it. In 2020, Gucci Mane, a man who built his reputation on signing artists who were undeniably authentic to the street experience, heard something in Pooh Shiesty and signed him to 1017 Records. No cap, that co-sign meant everything. Because Gucci Mane don't sign rappers. Gucci Mane signs people who remind him of himself in 2005, raw, dangerous, and completely unfiltered. The fact that Gucci stamped Pooh Shiesty was basically the culture's official certification that this wasn't performance. This was real. Back in Blood with Lil Durk dropped in November 2020 and cracked the top 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. The music video was a tribute to King Von, a man who'd been murdered in Atlanta just weeks before. A man who was himself one of the most lyrically specific street reporters of his generation. Pooh Shiesty performing a tribute to King Von wasn't just grief, it was alignment. It was two schools of thought, Chicago and Memphis, connecting over a shared understanding of what real street violence actually looks like. And when his debut mixtape Shiesty Season dropped in early 2021 and debuted at number 3 on the Billboard 200, everybody in the industry understood. This kid was not to be played with. But here's what the industry celebration missed. The same specificity that made his music great. The same granular first-person detail about violence that made his bars feel like they were written in blood was also a federal liability accumulating with every single verse. Here's where the real tea starts, gang, and I need y'all to slow down and actually process this because people been glossing over it like it wasn't the most reckless thing a rapper has said publicly in years. In February 2026, roughly 6 weeks before the FBI kicked in his door, Pooh Shiesty went on Instagram Live and made a claim. He said that Boozy Badazz might be the only rapper alive with more bodies than him. Let me repeat that so it lands correctly. He didn't say Boozy might have caught more bags. He didn't say more plaques, more hits, more shows, more bodies. He publicly claimed a body count. He made it a competition. And he placed himself at the top of that competition with only one possible exception in the entire rap game. Now, for people who don't know the reference, Boozy Badazz out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, caught a first-degree murder charge in 2009. The state of Louisiana didn't just charge him, they pursued the death penalty. They argued that Boozy had ordered a hit on a man named Terry Boyd. They put witnesses on the stand. They built a case designed to execute Torrance Hatch. Boozy eventually beat those charges, but the point isn't the verdict. The point is what Pooh Shiesty was invoking when he named Boozy specifically. He wasn't picking a name at random. He picked the one rapper in the culture whose murder allegations were the most documented, the most public, and the most serious in hip-hop history. And then he said, I might have him beat. Boozy's response? He came back and tried to do cleanup work. Said Pooh was talking about women, not actual bodies. Like bodies in that context meant females he'd been with, not people he'd allegedly put in the ground. And look, I understand what Boozy was trying to do. He's been around long enough to know that the feds screen social media. He's been through the system. He was trying to throw a tarp over a fire before it burned everything down. The problem? The clip was already everywhere. The investigators already had it, and federal prosecutors don't need Boozy's interpretation of what Pooh meant. They've got their own analysts, their own investigators, and their own files on unsolved Memphis homicides. But here's what nobody's talking about. That Instagram post wasn't a one-off. It wasn't a moment of heat. It was consistent with literally everything Pooh Shiesty had been saying on record for years. This ain't a case of a rapper making one dumb statement. This is a pattern that runs through his entire catalog. And when you look at the lyrics the way a federal prosecutor looks at them, not as art, not as expression, but as evidence of state of mind and documented behavior, the picture that emerges is disturbing. On Bodies, his collaboration with Chicago's Duty Low, the chorus talks explicitly about catching bodies and sliding on blocks. His verse on that track references the .762 round popping out, hitting everybody. But the line that should have every defense attorney in America sweating is buried in that same chorus. I am innocent, Your Honor. Say that to yourself again. This man wrote the words, I am innocent, Your Honor. Future tense self-defense, as if he already knew he would one day be standing in front of a judge and needed to rehearse his denial. That ain't a coincidence. That's subconscious documentation. Back in Blood presented him as someone who responds to murder with murder. His early records like Hell Night and Shiesty Summer describe the operational specifics of street violence in Memphis with the kind of detail that investigators use to build timelines. And throughout all of it, every verse, every hook, every ad-lib, and the subject wasn't money or success. The recurring subject was violence. Personal, first-person, I did this violence. Not my ops getting shot, me, Pooh Shiesty. Federal prosecutors have been using rap lyrics as evidence since at least the early 2000s. Courts have ruled again and again that lyrics can demonstrate intent, motive, and pattern of behavior. And Pooh Shiesty's catalog is not vague. It is not metaphorical in any way that a reasonable person could argue in court. It is specific, detailed, and consistent with the behavioral profile the government is building on him right now. But the lyrics are just one lane. The real evidence, the kind that wins federal cases, is what comes next. Let me set the scene, fam. It's January 10th, 2026. A Friday night in Dallas, Texas. 3 people connected to the music industry are traveling to a recording studio in the city. They believe they're walking into a legitimate business meeting. The purpose, as far as they understand it, is to discuss the terms of Pooh Shiesty's recording contract with Gucci Mane's 1017 Records. There had been ongoing tension around that deal. In 2024, Gucci had reportedly released most of his artists from the label, but Pooh Shiesty and Fujiano remained signed. The relationship had apparently deteriorated to the point where Pooh wanted out, and someone had set up a meeting to resolve it. What those three people walked into was not a meeting. Federal prosecutors allege it was a coordinated armed takeover, a trap, a setup orchestrated by Lontrell Williams Jr. himself. Here's the play-by-play according to the government's version of events. Pooh Shiesty, who at this point had been out of federal prison for exactly 3 months, released in October 2025 after serving a 3-year bid for a prior gun conviction in Florida, had allegedly arranged this Dallas studio meeting himself. But weeks before that meeting, he and 8 co-conspirators allegedly began planning. His father, Lontrell Williams Sr., allegedly rented a vehicle. That vehicle carried members of the crew from Memphis, Tennessee to Dallas, a trip that cell phone records and license plate readers tracked across hundreds of miles of highway. Days before the meeting, several defendants allegedly visited a Staples store near the studio. Prosecutors say they were printing materials related to the contract scheme, contract termination paperwork that would later allegedly be forced onto Gucci Mane at gunpoint. The defense said they were printing song lyrics. The government said they were printing the blueprint of an armed robbery. You decide which story makes more sense. On the night of January 10th, once the 3 victims arrived at the studio for what they believed was a legitimate business conversation, the 9 defendants allegedly executed their plan. Pooh Shiesty allegedly pulled out an AK-style pistol, the same type of weapon he raps about constantly, the same .762 flame he references in his music, and pointed it directly at one of the victims. He allegedly produced the contract termination paperwork and demanded Gucci Mane sign it under the barrel of that gun. While that was happening, the rest of the crew went to work. One victim was choked to the point of near unconsciousness. Big 30, Rodney Wright Jr., Pooh's longtime collaborator, the same man he's been making music with since 2019, allegedly used his body to physically barricade the studio door so nobody could escape. One by one, the victims were robbed. Rolex watches, diamond chains, cash, high-value jewelry. When it was over, the total value of what was allegedly taken came to approximately $450,000. Gucci Mane alone allegedly lost a $250,000 watch and $200,000 in diamond earrings. And then, because this situation could not get more unbelievable, some of the defendants allegedly went back to their hotel and posted the stolen jewelry on social media.
And as described further in the complaint, within hours of leaving the Dallas studio, a number of the defendants were on social media displaying some of the items that appeared to be the jewelry that had been robbed from the victims.
But here's the part of this story that should absolutely floor you. The entire time this was happening, the planning, the drive from Memphis to Dallas, the execution of the alleged robbery, the drive back, Pooh Shiesty had a federal ankle monitor strapped to his leg, a device installed by the government, a device designed to track his exact location in real time and ensure his compliance with his home confinement conditions. That ankle monitor placed him at the studio. It placed him away from where he was legally required to be. It provided a time-stamped GPS record of every single violation he committed that night. The instrument the federal court system gave him as a condition of his supervised release became, in the hands of federal prosecutors, the single most damning piece of evidence in the entire case against him. He was caught by his own leash. U.S. Attorney Ryan Reviled stood at a podium in Dallas on April 2, 2026 and said it plainly. For anyone contemplating using violence and intimidation as a business practice, I'm here to tell you that it will be vigorously investigated and prosecuted. That statement wasn't aimed at the general public. That statement was a message to every rapper in America who thinks that because the streets don't talk, the feds won't find out. The feds always find out, and when you're wearing their tracking device while you allegedly commit the crime, they find out before you even get back to Memphis. Now here's where people started connecting dots that most people in the public still haven't fully processed, because the case the DOJ presented on April 2nd wasn't built on one witness's testimony. It wasn't a he said, she said situation. It was 7 independent categories of evidence pointing at the same group of people, and every single strand of it connects back to Pooh Shiesty. The defense attorney, Bradford Cohen, made a point of saying the FBI took 3 months to make arrests, and he framed that delay as a sign of weakness in the case. The FBI doesn't take 3 months to arrest someone if they believe everything that was said on the night that it occurred.
I think the way that the statements were made, what allegedly was witnessed and what wasn't witnessed, I think gave great pause to the FBI. The FBI doesn't take 3 months to arrest someone if they believe everything that was said on the night that it occurred.
Cohen said publicly. That's a smart legal argument, but here's the counter-argument nobody's making. The FBI takes 3 months when they don't just want to arrest someone. They take 3 months when they want to bury someone. When they're pulling every thread, cross-referencing every database, and building a case that has no holes in it by the time it reaches trial. Let me break down what they built. 1. The ankle monitor data. Time-stamped GPS records showing Pooh Shiesty's real-time location on the night of January 10, 2026. The device placed him at the studio. The device showed him leaving the perimeter of his authorized residence. Every second of that night is documented with government-grade precision. 2. Cell phone records. The phones of all 9 defendants placed them in the same locations at the same times. Memphis departure, highway transit, Dallas arrival, the studio location, the hotel where several defendants stayed afterward. Cell towers don't lie and they don't forget. 3. License plate readers. The vehicle Pooh Shiesty's father allegedly rented was captured by automated license plate readers on the route from Memphis to Dallas and in the areas immediately surrounding the studio. Texas has an extensive network of these readers on its highways and in its cities. The car's journey was essentially photographed from start to finish. 4. Surveillance footage. Cameras at the studio complex captured the group. Cameras at the nearby hotel captured the group. And the cameras at the Staples store where defendants allegedly went to print the contract termination paperwork also captured the group. The prosecution has a visual record of the crew's movements in Dallas from the time they arrived to the time they left. 5. Latent fingerprints. 2 defendants' fingerprints were recovered from the scene and matched through FBI databases. Physical evidence at the location of the crime, connecting specific individuals to that specific place. 6. Social media posts. After the alleged robbery, multiple members of the group allegedly posted on their social media accounts flashing what appeared to be the stolen jewelry. You rob a man at gunpoint, take his $250,000 watch, and then post it on Instagram. This is not a joke. This actually allegedly happened, and federal investigators documented every post, preserved every screenshot, and matched what was being shown off to the descriptions provided by the victims. 7. Greyhound bus records. Multiple co-defendants apparently took a Greyhound bus from Dallas back to Memphis the morning after the alleged robbery. Public transportation with ticketed records attached to real names. The government can trace exactly who got on that bus and when. Now, here's where the murder angle enters this fully. The FBI acknowledged during the detention hearing that they had not yet formally interviewed Gucci Mane or the other victims directly. They were, at that point, relying on statements given to Dallas police on the night of the incident. Cohen tried to use that as a sign of weakness, but what Cohen didn't address publicly is what investigators are doing in parallel to the kidnapping case. Sources with knowledge of the investigation indicate that the federal probe into Pooh Shiesty's activities did not start and stop with the January 10th incident. Federal investigations, once opened, cast a wide net. When the DOJ and FBI open a file on someone, they don't just look at the crime that triggered the investigation. They look at the full picture. That means Memphis. That means cold cases. That means unsolved homicides that have never resulted in charges, but that have Pooh Shiesty's name circulating in investigative reports going back years. And here's the real tea. When Pooh went on Instagram and claimed he might have more bodies than Boozy, that statement is in federal files right now. Investigators use public statements to establish behavioral patterns, state of mind, and consciousness of guilt. A man who publicly claims to be one of the most prolific killers in the rap game, even if he's not charged with a specific murder today, has just told investigators exactly where to look. Memphis homicide files, unsolved shootings, cases that went cold because nobody talked. The feds are pulling every one of those files right now and running Pooh Shiesty's name through every one of them. That's what the new evidence is. It ain't just the ankle monitor data and the fingerprints from the Dallas studio. The new evidence is the totality of a life that Pooh Shiesty documented himself, in his music, on his social media, in his public statements, and that federal investigators are now systematically cross-referencing with every piece of law enforcement data they have access to. April 1st, 2026, FBI Memphis executes search and arrest warrants at a residence connected to Pooh Shiesty's family.
More breaking news your news leader is following now. We're learning more about an FBI search party at a home associated with Memphis rapper Pooh Shiesty.
Now take a look. This was the scene earlier this morning outside of a Cordova home belonging to Lontrell D. Williams, otherwise known as Pooh Shiesty's birth name. Now, the house deed didn't specify whether the homeowner is Pooh Shiesty or his father, Lontrell Williams Sr.
Lontrell Williams Jr. is taken into custody. The same day, raids happened across multiple cities: Memphis, Nashville, Dallas, and eventually Atlanta, when the last defendant, Terrence Rogers, was captured by the FBI. 9 arrests total, all 9 defendants charged with kidnapping and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Maximum sentence if convicted, life in federal prison. On April 8th, Pooh Shiesty stood before U.S. Magistrate Judge Renee Harris Tolliver in Dallas. The judge looked at him and said words that should send chills through anyone paying attention. "I find that the weight of the evidence against you is strong." She cited his criminal history. She cited the fact that he had violated his home confinement order. She cited the lengthy sentence he'd be facing if convicted. Bond denied. No release conditions were offered because the court determined that no release conditions existed that this man had not already violated. The court's ruling was explicit. By clear and convincing evidence, no combination of conditions could assure the safety of the community. By a preponderance of evidence, no conditions could assure his appearance at trial. The government proved both standards, and the judge ruled accordingly. On April 17th, Pooh Shiesty was transferred to Kaufman County Detention Center, 30 miles southeast of Dallas, where he's being held through the U.S. Marshals Service. His father was initially released on house arrest in Memphis, then transferred to Texas and put back in custody. Big 30, same story. All 9 defendants are currently in federal custody awaiting trial. And then, because this situation somehow wasn't wild enough already, Gucci Mane dropped a diss track. He called it Crash Dummy. And fam, the internet lost its mind. In the song, Gucci taunted Pooh Shiesty directly. He rapped about how, after everything that allegedly happened, the guns, the robbery, the kidnapping, Pooh was still technically signed to 1017 Records. "Tell the truth, you went out like a real crash dummy," Gucci rapped. He brought up family. He brought up the aftermath. He made it cinematic. The culture's reaction was split, but the loudest voice, and the most important one for understanding the street politics of this situation, was Boosie Badazz. Boosie was disgusted, not at Pooh, at Gucci, because in street culture, what Gucci allegedly did, making a police report, cooperating with the government's case, and then making a diss track about the situation, is the trifecta of violations. Boosie went on stream and said it plainly: getting robbed by your artist, making a police report, then dissing the Nat and Arneen for robbing you? This is crazy. Now, I'm not here to argue whether Boosie's assessment is right or wrong by society's standards. What I'm here to tell you is what it means in the context of the culture, because that context matters for understanding why this case is so complicated for everyone watching. The street code says you handle your business. You don't run to law enforcement. You don't then make a song about it. Whether or not you agree with that code, that is the code. And Gucci Mane, who built his entire brand on being the personification of that code, allegedly violated every part of it. That's why Boosie, who literally respects Gucci Mane as an OG, couldn't keep quiet about it. But here's the thing that Boosie and everyone else defending Pooh on code grounds is skipping over. Pooh Shiesty is facing life in federal prison. The rap code, the street code, the culture's verdict on Gucci's behavior, none of that matters one single bit when you're sitting in Kaufman County Detention Center waiting for a federal trial. Code don't commute a life sentence. Principles don't override an ankle monitor's GPS data. And Pooh Shiesty, the man who rapped "I am innocent, Your Honor" like he was rehearsing for a courtroom, went before a real judge and pleaded not guilty to all charges. His attorney, Kent Schaffer, confirmed the arraignment. The defense is going to fight this on the evidence, on the 3-month timeline gap, and on the credibility of the government's witnesses. But they're going into that fight against ankle monitor data, cell records, license plates, surveillance cameras, fingerprints, and social media posts. That's not a he said, she said. That's a mountain. Y'all need to zoom out for a second and look at what this really is, because there is a lesson in Pooh Shiesty's situation that goes beyond one rapper's legal troubles. Lontrell Williams Jr. was 26 years old when this federal case came down on him. 26. He had a top 15 Billboard hit, a debut mixtape that entered at number 3 on the Billboard 200. He had 61 million YouTube views on FDO. His comeback single dropped just weeks after getting out of prison in October 2025. Proving that even after 3 years locked up, his audience hadn't moved on. He had everything he needed to build a legitimate career in rap. A real second act, a story of redemption that people genuinely wanted to root for. And 6 months after getting out, he allegedly walked into a Dallas recording studio with an AK-style pistol. This ain't a story about the music industry failing Pooh Shiesty. This ain't a story about systemic injustice or a setup or bad timing. This is a story about a man who never separated himself from the life he rapped about, and who kept choosing that life over and over again, even when the consequences got steeper every single time. His first federal case, the 2021 Florida situation, was built partly on his own Instagram posts. Investigators matched the serial number on a $100 bill he posted on social media to a bill recovered at the scene of an alleged robbery. They identified the vehicle he was driving from a post he made flaunting the McLaren. He gave them the evidence himself. He paid for that with 3 years of his life. He got out. He dropped music. The streets celebrated. And then, with an ankle monitor on his leg, he allegedly went right back to the same pattern. Bigger stakes, more defendants, a federal kidnapping charge instead of a robbery and firearms charge, and the same self-documentation instinct that burned him in 2021 lit the match again. The social media posts of stolen jewelry, the Instagram live claiming more bodies than Boozy, the public record of a man who has never been able to stop himself from telling the world exactly who he is. Here's the real tea on what the feds are building. This is not just about January 10th, 2026. Federal investigations have a way of expanding. When the DOJ opens a case and starts pulling data on a person's criminal history, they don't stop at the most recent incident. They go back, way back. They are in Memphis right now. They are talking to people. They are reviewing case files on unsolved homicides and looking for the threads that connect to Lontrell Williams Jr. The bodies he claimed on Instagram, whether that statement was literal or metaphorical, put those threads directly in front of investigators and gave them a mandate to follow them. And that's the part of this story that nobody in the culture wants to say out loud. If the murder allegations are real, if there are unsolved homicides in Memphis that connect back to Pooh Shiesty, then the kidnapping case in Dallas is not the worst thing that can happen to him. The worst thing that can happen is that the federal investigation keeps expanding and the next set of charges doesn't say kidnapping, it says murder. No cap, the federal conviction rate sits above 90%. The DOJ does not file cases they don't believe they can win. They are not gambling with this indictment. And when a federal judge looks a 26-year-old man in the eye and says, "The weight of the evidence against you is strong," while denying bond, that judge has seen the file. That judge knows what's in it. Pooh Shiesty is sitting in Kaufman County Detention Center right now, 30 miles outside Dallas. No trial date set, no bond. His father is in custody. Big 30 is in custody. 7 other co-defendants are in custody. The case is in its early stages, which means the government is still building, still investigating, still pulling threads on everything this man has ever been connected to. The culture loves to debate who's real and who's performing. That debate always goes in Pooh Shiesty's favor. Nobody in hip-hop seriously questions whether his street credentials are authentic. The streets accepted him from day one. But authenticity has a price that the celebration never includes in the invoice. The same lived reality that makes the music resonate, the same raw, specific, first-person truth in every verse, is the same truth that federal prosecutors compile into discovery packets and hand to juries. He said, "I am innocent, Your Honor," on a record. He now stands in front of an actual federal judge saying those exact words. Except this time there's no beat behind it. This time there's no duty low in the chorus. This time it's just Lontrell Williams Jr., a federal indictment, and the mountain of evidence the government spent 3 months assembling before they ever put handcuffs on him. He rapped about catching bodies for 5 years. He claimed more bodies than Boozy on Instagram. And now the feds just revealed new evidence that says, "We heard you, we believe you, and we are going to make you prove it in court." The question ain't whether Pooh Shiesty is real. The question is whether real can beat what the federal government just put on the table. And based on everything we know right now, the ankle monitor, the fingerprints, the cell records, the cameras, the social media posts, and the murder allegations circling in the background of this whole case, that answer ain't looking good for Lontrell Williams Jr.